few moments later.
What's up, you guys? It's the Nightwing Way of Life Esports coming at you guys with another League of Legends video here today, talking about the LEC 2020 Summer Split Week 3 thoughts and opinions. We just had Week 3 of the LEC 2020 Summer Split just in a few days ago. G2 took down Fnatic. We had the good old El Clasico matchup. This was probably the most one-sided G2 Fnatic matchup I have ever seen, and I'm a G2 fan. As you guys already know, I love G2, but seeing them smack around Fnatic like that is holy moly. Fnatic are just on this downward trajectory where they're literally, on a 4-game losing streak right now. And a lot of people are wondering what is going on with Fnatic. What is actually going on? There's so many problems that are arising with this team. And you also have Schalke, who look like complete garbage. Excel even picked up another win, but they also look pretty bad as well. I think for Schalke and Excel, you just kind of write off 2020 as basically a split where you basically fucked up from start to finish and you just call it a year. Team Vitality are showing a little bit more promise. You have Misfits, who are still pretty inconsistent. Rogue and Mad Lions are still at the top of the LEC standings. Mad Lions consistently have just been winning and winning ever since their only loss to G2, which is also really good. Rogue bounced back from their loss against G2 to dismantle Fnatic. Then you have Origin, who is also just there, and I think they're going through some sort of identity crisis where they don't really know exactly how they really want to play. And that's pretty much the basis summary of this week. And then you had SK Gaming, who took off a game off G2 in a pretty convincing game. So, as we always do, let's start from bottom to top. So, Schalke obviously lost more games this week, and a lot of people have pretty much written off Schalke. For them to make playoffs, they would have to pretty much win almost every single game at this point. And looking at their level of gameplay, I just don't personally see it. I just don't also see them, really making that big of a difference overall. There's nothing more to really say about them, is that their gameplay is atrocious, and I feel bad for Oda Wamne. They played Gilius this week, and they still lost, so it really doesn't matter what they do right now. The roster has no cohesion, their macro sucks, all their drafts stink. They just suck. Excel Esports are also pretty bad. They got another win this week. They actually managed to take down, if the schedule will pop up. No, for some reason, when you go to LOL Esports, the schedule obviously does not pop up. So let me actually go to LOL Esports in a new tab, and let's see what actually pops up, because I don't know why the certain schedule doesn't pop up. Yeah, you just go to it randomly, and maybe the website is just going through server maintenance and shit. But let's go to Leaguepedia LEC. Let's go to that. Let's go to LEC 2020 Summer right here, and let's see what are the next matches. So we're in right now. We're in week 3 that I'm talking about right here. So you had Excel, who won against Schalke, which is the worst team in the league, and then you also had them lose to Misfits pretty easily, right? Then you also had Team Vitality, which also didn't play the best overall. I personally think that Vitality has little good things about them, but you don't really get to see it in a lot of their games. It's pretty much just they have certain good things about them, but they also have certain things about them where it's basically is this team actually showing any promise? I mean, they did play up against SK Gaming, and they they looked so good against SK, but SK also ended up beating G2, which was the most interesting thing, and Vitality also beat G2. So I'm seeing good things overall from them, but I'm not really seeing anything else. I think they have a pretty okay comp for a lot of their games. You had Malixa popping off on the Corki in the game against SK, and they actually looked pretty good in their win against SK overall. I think Malixa has been a definite big impact on Team Vitality's performances. Cabochard has not been looking that good, so they put him on the Maokai in this game, and I thought that was overall the best thing you could have actually really done for Cabochard, since he has been slightly underperforming. So then when you're looking at Fnatic are now on a 4-game losing streak. They got obliterated by G2 in their in the supposed match of the week. Then they also got obliterated by Rogue. You know, they just have been consistently getting destroyed in a lot of their early games. A lot of the macro decisions are just not there. Hylissang and Reckless are pretty underwhelming as a bot lane, but Reckless has still been pretty good, and Selfmade also has been pretty good. But Bwipo and Nemesis, I think they just lost all type of... I guess you would want to say... how would I say this correctly without sounding kind of like a douchebag? They've been picking champs that lose gracefully, and they're not making an impact when their champions have an impact later on. So this is what I'm trying to say, is that you have compositions like, let's just take the G2 Fnatic game, for example. They have Orin, Graves, Galio, Aphelios, and Tom Kench. Pretty okay comp, right? But they're getting beaten so badly that what their champions do later on doesn't matter because they're losing that badly. And Nemesis is pretty low on the stat lines. He's low on pretty much everything. Hylissang has been literally going almost 0-4 every single game. They've just been having a rough time, and maybe this rough patch will get figured out in the next up-and-coming weeks. But their next matches in the next up-and-coming weeks, let me actually give that for you guys right now. The next matches they actually have to go through is they play SK and they play up against Schalke. So we can pretty much guarantee they'll break their losing streak with Schalke, but SK also beat G2, so we know they're not messing around. So with Fnatic right now, I'm not really too sure if it's draft-related issues or the player synergy just isn't there. And you can kind of tell that Nemesis and Selfmade are completely different people from someone like Bwipo, someone like Reckless, someone like Hylissang. I think their team is just more or less so full of co-workers rather than full of like players who actually enjoy being around each other. We don't really get to see a lot of interactions personally with them. You know, I don't know if that's more or less so from a content creator standpoint, or if that's just more or less so that's just who they are. But if they play better with just being like coworkers, that's fine. But they're not playing better right now as coworkers. They're actually playing really fucking bad, and that's just how we have to see it. They've lost 4 games straight. One of them lost. Oh my lord, the loss against Rogue was embarrassing. Like, losing like this is just embarrassing. People keep saying that they have a mental block against G2, but that's just an excuse saying that they would win though. You know, we can't just be making excuses here. It's not a mental block. G2 players are just better player for player, with maybe the exception of Perks and Reckless as bot laners, right? So you can't just say, how many times can you have a mental block against a team to the point where you just are either, one, bad, or you just are trash, which is the latter combines into both, right? That's what I'm saying right now. So, like, they did make okay plays this week. Like, you saw some synergy with Nemesis and Selfmade, but it's just not there. You know, like, I just don't see this really working out. And, you know, next split, when we're going into 2021, let's say they go to Worlds and they have a okay Worlds performance, I really don't see them keeping this roster together. I really don't. Looking at how, like, kind of rough these past 2 splits have been for them, in terms of regular season, playoffs, and even right now, I just don't see them keeping the same roster anyway. But that's pretty much all I have to say about Fnatic, and leading back into that, you have G2. So, G2 got before G2. It's Misfits. So, Misfits played up against Vitality. They easily got a win there. They beat Schalke, and they actually got a win up against, hold on, let me get this correct, because sometimes the LOL eSport page can literally mess up all the matches. Let me keep all the matches here right in front of me on this tab, because it's just freaking confusing me where it's all really going. So, let's go back to this page, cut that out, and let's go back to here, right here. Alright, so you have standings, matches, and you have it right here. So, Misfits this week played up against Vitality, and they won, and they played up against... they won up against Misfits, and then they played on Saturday, and they beat Excel. So they actually went 2-0 this week, which was actually really interesting. I remember watching their Excel games, and Excel, you know, really have to try out something, because the issue with Excel, and I'm glad, you know, Misfits pretty much expose them for everything. If Patrick and Torre really don't do anything, they also don't do anything in terms of how XL work. Like, you have Kadro, who tries to exert some early game pressure, but when you're playing up against, like, the Misfit squad, you know, you pretty much have better players all across the board on Misfits, and even a player like Dan was having a really great game, like the best game he's had so far during the split. So them going 2-0 this week really did help them out, obviously, and it's something that we can clearly see was a nice boom for them, because they definitely needed that extra confidence boost going into this week. I thought that most of them played actually pretty good. So with that being said, I think that DOS is still considerably their weaker player, but he's been, you know, roaming around on the map on, like, picks like the set support and the Nautilus and making stuff happen. So, but against teams like XL and teams like Schalke, those are expected wins no matter who you play in this league. So when you're also counting that you have to also go up against players like, you know, Patrick and Torre, those are the only players on XL you really have to worry about. But when it comes to Misfits and how they like to play more or less through Febevin and now Kabe, actually, and Razork usually dedicates most of his time to perma-camping mid, which is not the best strategy, but that's going to work overall if we're talking about just basically a best of one, you know, what's it called? Best of one round robin format. Yes. So, on to G2. So G2 lost against SK Gaming this week, and they also beat Fnatic. The SK Gaming game, SK just destroyed them, and we know Perks is now going to be stepping down from, you know, G2 for week 4. They don't know when he's going to be coming back up. We know Perks went through a very big personal tragedy with his dad obviously passing away. Then you also had G2 clapping Fnatic, destroying them on this day. So they can easily show people why they're the best team in the LEC, but they can drop games to SK Gaming. I mean, what can I really say? I'm going to have to see a little bit more out of them. I'm taking Perks out of the equation. I need to see a little bit more out of, like, Wonder, Genkos, and Caps, and Mickey X. The reason why I'm not counting Perks right now is because I understand having a personal family tragedy really does affect your mind, so you have to kind of factor that in, and that does put a big, you know, spear into, like, team synergy and how they coincide within the game, because Perks also is the captain of G2, so not having him there would also be a big problem. But they do win the match of the week against Fnatic, and clapping our rivals is actually puts a smile on my freaking face. So let's go and let's talk about Origin. So this week Origin played up against Mad Lions, and they played up against Schalke. Obviously, if you play up against Schalke, you instantly win. There's no reason to look at that game at all. If you played bad against Schalke, you were just complete garbage. They played against Mad Lions. The compositions that they were trying to play were really, really weird. You had, like, Alfari on fucking Kale, and if Kale, she has to rank up and scale a lot, and if she doesn't get to a certain point where she can basically just 1v9 the game, then you essentially have a useless top laner. And Mad got to the point in this game where they were pretty much beating Origin to everything. Objectives, yeah, the score looked pretty close, but Mad had the better composition in their Mordekaiser, Volibear, Orianna, and the Kalista and Alistar. Kaiser pulled out the Alistar. We have not really seen Alistar pick that much ever since Rakan became a champion. I truly think that sometimes during League, they like to create champions that do things specifically better than older champions. Like, have you guys noticed that ever since Rakan became a champion with Xayah, we don't really see Alistar. I still think Alistar is a good champion for what he can do, but I think Rakan is a little bit more easier to play and a lot more effective to use for certain team compositions. But Origin, you know, Alfari is still their best player, and Nukeduck, I mean, I don't understand most of his things. He's, like, they're having a team fight against Matt, and he's running around the side doing nothing, stun carding, like, I mean, I know you could only stun card one person, but he's just not being effective, not really doing much. You know, I truly think that they need a different mid laner moving into, you know, next split, because it's just not working out. I see them making big changes, and a lot of teams actually making big changes, given how, you know, synergy is not good when most players are literally looking at you probably like, God damn, man, can you put in some damage? You know, I don't think they'll actually be running back Destiny. You know, well, he's the only Oceania player in the LEC right now, currently at the moment in time, but I don't think he's played that bad. So if he gets a team after the split, I'll be not shocked at all. And then you have SK Gaming. They played up against against, let's see, they played against G2. They won really pretty convincingly against G2. Then you had them losing to Vitality. And then the interesting here with this one is that Vitality made a lot of more better decisions on this day than they did in the previous day. So that also means that we get two teams that can be either middle of the pack or two teams that can consistently fight each other, which is good, obviously. I think that Gen X role swapping to top, we've been able to see more of an impact he's actually had. I think he looks better as a top laner than a mid laner, personally. Zazie, I think, actually looks pretty good. You know, I think Zazie adds a lot to their, team overall. Trick looks interesting some weeks, but they did kind of get railed by Vitality in this game later on. Corki plus Lulu is just broken. That's just how it works for when you have a bunch of shields going on your consistent DPS carries. That's how it works. So you have Rogue. Rogue also played up against... Who did Rogue play against? Rogue played against Fnatic. They won pretty convincingly against Fnatic, but then they ended up losing to Mad Lions. So they basically lost to a team that's better than them, and they beat a team that's worse than them. You know, my friend was talking about Rogue, and he said Rogue doesn't really look that good. Now, I'd be hard-pressed to believe that because Rogue actually does look good. You know, looking at their games, Rogue doesn't look bad. I think that right now, with how the state of the league is, they might be better by comparison because of how worse everyone else is, but you can't just constantly say that every single time a team is doing well. You have to acknowledge they're doing well. If the other better teams are not doing well for whatever reason, that's their fault. You can't change that. You can only play your style of game and the way you choose to actually play. Now, I do think that Rogue running a Lowy this week with Finn wasn't really that good. We know Finn likes to be that Kled one-trick guy. When he's not on Kled, he looks completely worse on a lot of other things. You had a Rome who's now getting put on carries like Renekton, which also looks pretty good. I think Mad Lions being the first place team at the moment adds a little bit of different flavor to the LEC because usually it's Fnatic, Origin, or G2 at the top, and a lot of other teams just like scrambling for that 6th place spot. But I did overall like what Mad Lions did in our game against Rogue, and I liked what Rogue were attempting to do, but it just didn't really work out in this game specifically. But against Fnatic, it worked out pretty well if you really, really look at it. So if you look at the game against Fnatic, it's basically just night and day difference because of how much they played. They dominated their early game. Hansama was getting early kills on the Kalista. You had Finn, who was having great barrel placements. Bwipo was, dying quite a lot in this game, but he was playing Orange, so it doesn't really matter, honestly, if he dies a lot. Reckless was on Karma. I mean, I'm pretty sure he should be on Karma duty after the performances he's been having, but that's been pretty much it overall. I think that Rogue showed that they can take games off top-tier teams like Fnatic and Origin, but I guess against G2, the player skill discrepancy does show overall. And that's pretty much it for Rogue, and now it's on to the best team in the LEC currently at this moment in time, which is Mad Lions. They took on Rogue, which I just went over a moment ago, and they also took on Origin. Against Origin, they also ran a weird composition that I thought wasn't even going to pan out, but when you have them picking Alfari, Kale, and you're getting beat to a point where you're never going to have the Kale come online, Nutuk is on TF, basically making no impact. Either Nutuk plays TF or he plays Orianna like Froggen does for the LCS. And I mean, like, holy crap, there's only so much you can really help with. Now, looking how Shadow, Karze, and Kaiser have been performing, they have considerably the best bot lane and one of the best junglers, so that does add a lot of consistency to their team. But they do play one style. They have a few, well, I'd say two styles, actually. They like to play through Karze and Kaiser, or they like to play through Shadow by giving him all the early game priority. Now, once you have all this happen, eventually this does get exposed, but right now with them winning all the games, it's not really going to basically get exposed for a bit. A lot of teams like to beat them in the early game, but they can match you in the early game too. So it's basically how it goes. Also, there was this really, it goes to show you how crazy and biased certain teams are against other orgs, because this is nothing that bad, but they have this voting system in the LEC where they're, how they have the, like, who won the draft and certain things. We know Origin lost the draft against Mad Lions. But you know who won the percentage against the fans? Origin did. Because people are in denial when other players are outperforming steadily veteran players who've had past success. And this is what I'm always trying to tell people. Just because a player had past success in other splits doesn't mean if he's not playing good right now, I'm not judging the past. The past is over. Yeah, he played good in those splits. Good for him. I'm proud of him. A round of fucking applause. Let's worship the ground this guy walked on. Is he playing good right now? No, he's not. So that means you should be, you know, telling it like it is when you're basically trying to talk about these players. You know, if these veteran players like Nuke Duck, Xerxes, Upset are not playing that good right now, and other veteran players on other teams who've had success in Europe or North America or Korea or China, if they're not playing good, you have to call it for what it is. They're not playing good. I don't care what happened last year. What is last year going to do to right now? That's it. But that's pretty much it. See you guys later. Like, comment, subscribe. Most of all, enjoy. I'm the Nightwing, and Way of Life Esports is signing out, guys. Peace. Have a great day.
Hi there, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more stuff.
Yeah, thank you.